So welcome everyone. My name is Jan Lehman. I'm the owner and CEO of and visionary of CTC Productivity. And our overall objective is to create a culture where productivity fuels happiness. So we're not just about teaching people how to work smarter, but it's actually for the end game of obviously increased productivity, but also stress reduction and job satisfaction. So we love our missions, very much what we're focused on. Thank you for attending our webinar series. And we've been doing this series for a long time. Oh, Arnie, go back to the one before. Arnie's advancing the slides. So that's all right. So today this session is on Microsoft Copilot, using it to strengthen EOS execution for leadership teams. If you don't know what the heck an EOS is, it's just an operating system. There's lots of different types of operating systems. We run on EOS, so we tend to work with a lot of EOS clients, but everything we're going to talk about today is going to relate to any kind of operating system in any environment. So, and Arnie's going to be doing the talk today, so I'm super excited about that one. And then our next webinar is going to be another really interesting one. I'm not sure if everybody has heard that, well, the AI world is changing, as we all know. But Copilot's really Microsoft's introducing a lot of new features and things. So they're introducing something called co-work. The easiest way to explain it is it doesn't just help you collect content, but it actually helps you do the work, would be the easy way to explain it. And it's only on kind of limited licensing right now. And then if you haven't heard, Microsoft introduced Claude into the Copilot suite of tools. So lots of fun things there. I'm going to enter into chat some links, and then Arnie, if you go to the next slide, this is a QR code if you'd rather use that. But there's links for registering for that next webinar that we were just talking about, links to past recordings. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, link to buy our book if you're interested. And I'm going to start off sharing a little bit of information, and then we'll turn it over to Arnie. And I do want to call out the elephant in the room, because people often are like, why in the heck are you guys using Zoom if you're Microsoft consultants? But we are trying to attract anybody and everybody that wants to learn about Microsoft. And often those companies are on Google. So we figure if your grandma can get on Zoom easily, then everybody can join our webinar easily. So that's why we use Zoom. So we always say you don't want to just start using technology just for kicks because it does cool stuff. You really want to think about what are your primary business issues that you're trying to solve. And so what we found is if you have any of these issues here, or you're drowning in email, or you have too many meetings, that you have capacity issues, there's definitely something in the Microsoft suite you want to explore. Microsoft is way ahead of Google on this right now, but I will say we actually don't recommend every feature in Microsoft. We don't recommend every tool in Microsoft. We recommend what we actually see that drives productivity and improves profitability. So if you're having any of these challenges, you're in the right room. You're going to learn a little bit more about using the Microsoft suite. All right, we always introduce a case study. This is a new one for us. I'm really excited. It's an AI case study. And so let me set up the situation. So the challenge was EmployU, they are a workforce development organization focused on people with disabilities. So they do super important work. And they realized that they were spending a lot of time in their monthly progress report process they spend a ton of time doing administrative work where they'd prefer to actually be out in the field working with skilling up people in the labor market, things like that. They came to us because they really wanted to deploy an AI agent, and they wanted to make sure it wasn't just this cool fancy agent, but it was actually simple for end users to use, and it would have really good adoption. So that was a really important part of the objective. So the solution is we created a Copilot agent, and what it does basically is at the month end when they need to be creating their monthly reports, it will actually go create the reports for these people. We actually stored the agent in SharePoint. One of the challenges we're seeing with a lot of companies is people don't know where agents are, the organization of agents and all that. So we made sure it was easy for our end users to find. And it was a really straightforward process for them to use to eliminate all that administrative time and stop the adoption fatigue that a lot of people are getting with using these AI tools. So something really easy for them actually to take advantage of. The results is it now creates very well written, very thorough monthly progress reports that the field agents are saying that it works it does just as good a job, if not better, than what they do. And it actually got the attention of a lot of people that were heavily using pen and paper because they now had a motivator to get out of pen and paper when they saw the advantages they could have if they put their information in digitally, which we know we're all trying to get our employees to put everything digitally. And so we saw a lot of really the adoption rates were really, really high. And so now these field agents can actually focus on the more important work, which is the client-facing work. So it's super great. We always provide RI. We don't have the RI yet on what this cost us because we're still working through. And with AI, you never quite know when you're going to end the case study. But just to let you know, with this organization, they had around 50 to 60 employees that spent between 4 hours to 10 hours a month. And they're estimating, these are always from our client's perspective, that they're saving 240 to 600 hours a month. Can you imagine what that's doing to their profitability? And again, the second part is our favorite part. Employees are super happier about their job. They've got lots of time saved on things they don't really want to spend time on. They think it's high quality reporting, and they can focus on where their heart is and what they want to do and what they are hired to do. And per usual with Microsoft 365, if we come in and build something for you, you own it. There's no ongoing subscription fee. And so, yeah, so a really cool case study. Perfect. All right, Arnie, you are up.
Okay, and I am the person who experienced the tech problems. And what was going on was there's this really loud, obnoxious buzz. And so Jan, since I rejoined, it hasn't started, but I have my speakers on so low I can barely hear you. So
Okay.
um, if anybody needs to chime in with an important question or a correction or whatever, please yell because I may not hear you otherwise.
I'll
But
help, Arnie. I'll help there.
Jan, that's the first I've seen of that case study, and that's impressive.
Yeah.
And I've got to constantly battle something because people get so tired of the AI hype that the AI hype itself can be fatiguing. And so I battle it and try to keep my excitement in check. But wow, it is changing so fast that if you're not keeping up on it weekly or more often, you might miss something. But anyway, enough of that. Copilot from novelty to EOS clarity. This session is not about features or automation, although I will introduce one or two awesome features that I hope everyone takes with them and begins using heavily. But other than that, this is about how leaders think, decide, and keep work visible enough so that Copilot can actually be useful. And a spoiler alert, the feature that I'll talk about is Copilot Pages. It's a single feature, so that verb didn't seem to match that. But anyway, it is Copilot Pages. And I have found in working with my clients and potential clients that nobody knows about them, which is really a shame. But after today, you will know about it. So I think probably if you're in business, you've heard of the Pareto principle. It states that 20% of the work you do gives you 80% of the results. I found this to be true. Most likely everyone else has too, but it's been cited for decades because it's pretty much true. And here's the problem with Copilot. Not a problem, but it's an unfortunate angle that most people look at Copilot. Yes, it is excellent at writing and proofreading. It's great at getting answers. You no longer have to type a query or keywords into Google, get a list of 4,000 web pages, try to guess which one has your answer, and then scan the page to see if your answer is there. It saves a tremendous amount of time in getting those answers. If you've not yet used Copilot, and when I say Copilot, I'm speaking of the paid version because the free version will not do this, but summarizing meetings, it's awesome at that. Rarely makes a mistake on that. Creating documents, I found not so much. I often copy and paste the results that Copilot will give me in a chat into a document because I found Copilot's not that great yet at creating documents, and especially not at PowerPoint presentations. Nancy or someone might be able to show me how to do that, but I've not yet cracked that. Polishing notes. One thing I found is, man, I will, when I'm mobile, I will just speak a ton of thoughts into my iPhone's notes, and it will be all over the place. It will be outrageously long over the course of a day as I'm walking through the woods or something. And when I get back to the computer, I will paste that into Copilot and say, Copilot, make sense of this, summarize it, and give me an outline or a good document. It does great at that. So if you're walking project sites or whatever, keep that in mind. Walk the project down, speak into your phone, and then let Copilot make sense of all your notes. But here's back to Pareto. Do not judge Copilot on that 80%. As I said, hit and miss. It's great at some things in that 80% of the work that you do that only gets you 20% of the results. We're talking mostly busy work, but it does pretty good. The real value in Copilot, and this is my opinion, and I think I'm right, the real power is in focusing Copilot on that 20%, the 20% that drives your business, the strategic thinking, I tell you, lately I have been pivoting a little bit on my offerings because of Copilot is changing so fast. I've been talking through my strategy for, okay, Copilot's changing so fast. How do I leverage this to help my clients? And so I've been having conversations with Copilot that have gone on 2, 3, 4 weeks. I think I've got one discussion that's been going on for 2 months. But that's the strategic thinking that Copilot can help you is I've got these random thoughts. They're all over the place. Copilot, help talk me through these. Ask me questions. Decision making, man, all you got to do is explain to Copilot, here's the context, here's everything I'm up against. This option has this option has that. And then I like to say, Copilot, interview me. Ask me questions about these 2 choices to help me decide. It hits it out of the park. Problem solving, just imagine this. Copilot has access to all of the tech manuals, all of the user forums, all of the mechanical forums, millions of books. It will help you solve your problems. IDS, keep that in the back of your mind for IDS. Situation appraisals, this kind of goes back to the vague gut feelings that leaders have, which is something feels off here. Here's all of the context about this thing that's making me uneasy. Copilot, help me line this out, make sense of this gut feeling that I have. It will talk you through it. Potential problem identification. Every strategy I come up with, I say, Copilot, pressure test this, be devil's advocate, tell me what might blindside me. And it has saved me so many times lately from maybe not catastrophic errors, but some pretty good errors nonetheless, potential errors. Potential opportunity identification. One of the questions I read it in a book somewhere said, ask Copilot or any AI, but especially Copilot, since it knows your business, if you're using the paid version, say strategically, what new developments, what new strategies by my competitors in the world of technology, in the world of construction, engineering, whatever, tell me what is going to put me out of business. And then it will tell you, here's what could blindside you. Then you say, okay, Copilot, ask me enough questions to where you know enough to help me come up with a strategy to offset that potential problem and turn it into a potential opportunity so I could beat my competitors to it. Now, as I said before, if you didn't realize it, realize that AI has hundreds of millions of books, articles, forums, and more at its immediate recall, thus the need for all these data centers because of the computing requirements that has. That's great that it has all that stuff on the internet, but what makes Copilot so good if you're running on Microsoft is that it can reference all of your organization's data and communication to give you insights. But that means that Copilot needs access to your organization's information. I'll come back to this point shortly, but just keep that in mind. The paid version of Copilot, if you give it access to your organization's information and it can sort through all of that, it puts your strategy discussions with Copilot on steroids. Mm-hmm. So most leaders will, they're smart people. They do a pretty good job of prompting, and if not, they will get better at it. But leaders are currently thinking out loud with a Copilot chat. You know, if you're new to AI, Copilot is no different. It is not a search engine, although you can use it as one. You have discussions with it. Unlike search engines, you ask it a question, you start a strategy, you have a back and forth, and it remembers everything that came before it. Then you have more questions, more reactions. You'll feed Copilot more what ifs. This is already happening. But then the problem is that valuable thinking starts disappearing the longer the chat goes on, the more time that passes. It goes down your page of chats to where you can't even find that chat again. So you have this great conversation with Copilot, and then the chat is gone. The information, maybe the chat thread gets to be 50 or 60 feet long, 100 printed pages. That's a lot of good thinking that you might lose. And so, therefore, this problem sets up the need for a place to capture and build on the thinking. So I'm going to introduce pages. Pages give your thinking a place to live. No matter how long that chat gets, no matter how many different chats a conversation goes across, you have this fallback, which is pages. I have used pages heavily for about 6 months now. And wow, probably my favorite tool of all time. And I've had a lot of favorite tools over time, SharePoint, Teams, etc. So at the bottom of every Copilot response that it gives you, you will see this icon the arrow's pointing at, and you can click on this and it will include the most recent response it gave you into what's called a Copilot page. I prefer not to use that icon, however. I like to just simply say in the chat, and a lot of times I won't do this till 4, 5, 10, 20 prompts and responses. I'll say, hey, Copilot, build me a Copilot page named whatever. I tell it what to name it. And then I will tell it summarize this entire discussion on this page. So this is golden in that all these great strategy discussions you're having, you have a summary document that gives your thinking a place to live. So when you click that button, or better yet, when you say, Copilot, please create a page and summarize this discussion, you get this right here. On the right is your page. It pops up that new page. I like to tell Copilot what to title the page because I have a ton of pages now. And if you leave the titling up to Copilot, it will rarely be what you want, and then you have to rename it. But anyway, what's highlighted here is your summary of the entire discussion. As you go through the discussion over on the left, you'll see your chat is still here. It just takes up less of the screen. So you can continue to have your discussion over there. And every time you and Copilot together come up with an idea that is awesome, you can say, hey, Copilot, please insert that in the proper location on the page, and it will do it. And it will highlight what it added to where you can proofread it and make sure it is what you want. So there's lots of little tips and tricks here that we don't have time for today, but very, very functional. So how does all this fit into EOS? EOS gives you an awesome system. I learned about EOS probably 5 years ago when Jan turned me on to it, and it's awesome for running a business. It's what I have done for years in my business consulting, but it gives a standard structure. I think probably most of you know about it. But what about when you are developing your rocks at this start of a quarter, first of the year? What if you said, Copilot, here is our VTO, here is our 10-year picture, our long-term goals. Since you have access to our information, you already know about a lot of our problems. Help me develop rocks. Give me a list of 5 to 7 rocks that you think would be great, and let's start from there. And then you have the discussion with Copilot. You can do this individually if you're the CEO, the owner, department head, but you can rough them in and have good ideas of what they might be before you go to your quarterly or annual meeting.
Arnie, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, just a comment, and I think you're going to get to it. This assumes that all of your EOS data is within the Microsoft 365 environment, just so everybody knows, so Copilot has the access to it. Right?
Exactly. Yes. And yes, exactly. And you're right. That's the coming back to that earlier slide I talked about. And if I don't speed it up, we're going to run out of time. So we'll get there. There's a lot of good stuff here. So with the pages, you could keep your EOS work from getting lost or forgotten. It makes follow-through easier for leaders and teams. By the way, you cannot share your chat that you as the business owner perhaps are having with Copilot, but you can share the pages themselves. So you cannot share them externally if you're working with a consultant such as Jan or I or Nancy or Libby. You cannot share it with us, so it would have to be projected, but internally you can share those pages. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So remember, the goal is not perfect thinking up front. It's giving your thinking a home so it can get better over time. You develop these pages as you go forward. Maybe you create a page for each of your rocks. And so now you and your staff can have a page where you have an ongoing discussion and analysis of your rock. So if you have a problematic or off-track rock, right there is a great way to keep track of all your discussions and thoughts, whether individually or as a group. So everything I just showed you works because the thinking is visible. Better discussions and clearer decisions and stronger follow-through. By the way, on those pages, they are loop pages. So you can add planner components to them. You can assign action items. So each person, those action items that you assign via that planner component shows up in everyone's individual Outlook or their to-do list. Additionally, it shows up in Planner, etc. But here's an important point. Back to what Jan said, and I pointed out earlier, Copilot can amplify clarity or confusion. If your current organizational information exists in scattered confusion and countless email threads, Copilot is limited. It can help you for sure. Don't wait until everything's in order to experiment with Copilot. But what you will find is if your organizational information and your communications are a mess, Copilot can guess. It wants to please you. It will return incomplete answers. And yes, it can help, but it is terribly limited. We don't like digging through a dumpster of information to get what we need. Neither does Copilot. It likes structured information. So Copilot amplifies what's already there. If your Teams and SharePoint environments are well organized, it will amplify that clarity. It will hit it out of the park. If you not so much, Copilot struggles. So if your conversations are not in Teams, Copilot does not Copilot will only access what you yourself have access to. You don't have access to other people's inboxes and email threads, but you do have access to your team sites. So if your conversations are not Teams, Copilot is limited. If your documents are not in SharePoint, if they are in somebody's OneDrive, somebody's hard drive, and oh, I hate to think if they're still on servers and yeah, that's the local shared drives. It certainly can't get to those. And if you
Margaret, thanks
think,
for smiling. We know Arnie's jokes are working. Sorry,
oh, did
Arnie.
somebody smile? I
Yeah,
didn't
your
know if
jokes
it
are
is.
working, Arnie.
Okay. It was okay, but cool. So here's a biggie. If you can now, I mean, this is Microsoft. This is graduate level here. Conversations and documents, Teams and SharePoint been around. SharePoint's been around for 25 years now, believe it or not. Even though most people don't use it well. Um, Teams has been around since 2017. That's old news. If you're using Pages for your thinking, that's advanced level. That's current. If you go there, you will be ahead of most organizations. But if they're not in there, Copilot will amplify that confusion and could cause some problems if you trust it and you don't verify. And that just brings up the obvious point too. It always tells you AI can be wrong. No matter what I tell you, no matter what Copilot tells you, especially if it's high consequence, please check the references. Please make sure it's right. And I'll have a couple more points shortly that you will want to also make sure. But when work lives in shared places, Copilot becomes far more reliable. I think I've beaten that dead horse enough. So if your conversations are in Teams, documents in SharePoint, and your thinking are in Pages, my gosh, when you start using the paid version of Copilot, you will be so happy. Oh, there was hype. Sorry, they say don't hype AI too much, but I can't help it. So we've already covered that. I'm looking through my notes here. Okay.
Go ahead and start entering questions. Arnie, you've got one question there that you can answer during the Q&A if you want, but go ahead and start entering questions. We're getting close to that point. Thanks, Todd, for submitting one.
Okay, yeah, please help me keep track of that. I've only got two monitors here and I do not have the chat called up. But I'm going to close. I really am almost done. I have 2 points that write these down, please. If you're going to take pages away as oh, wow, I learned something cool today, please also write these down because Copilot, as any AI, it can burn you if you remove your human element from it. You've still got to use your judgment. Copilot should be treated as your thinking partner, not your boss, not the expert on everything, never wrong. It can certainly be wrong, although if you follow these next 2 slides, you'll be okay. Copilot and all AI wants to be your cheerleader. I think the word is a sycophant, something like that. Don't let it. For high stakes decisions, you've just got to be careful. And I hope I didn't scare you too much. Use it for high stakes decisions, but always make sure that you're double checking that it is not cheerleading you. I discovered this on my own one day. I was working on strategy and I typed something in and I mistyped a single word that made the meaning 180 degrees different from what I intended. And Copilot said, I'm paraphrasing, Arnie, that is brilliant. That's awesome. Let's work on that. And then I knew I had a typo. So I changed the word, which totally gave the opposite meaning. And Copilot said, that's a brilliant pivot. And I think, okay, this is a problem. So when I got done with what I was doing, I did some internet research and so I had Copilot do some research on this phenomenon. And yeah, Copilot, you always give feedback. You get the thumbs up, thumbs down. People thumbs up the stuff that makes them feel good. So Copilot, while it's learning from feedback, it can turn it into a cheerleader. So now when I'm working on high value, high consequence things, whatever they are, I will often say to myself, what if Copilot's wrong? And I say, Copilot, I need you to pressure test that. I will even tell it, I've got thick skin. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me what's going to bite me. And so Copilot and I have a lot of frank discussions, and it keeps me from making some errors. So, yeah, it makes me wonder how many errors, how many stupid things did I do before I figured that out? And the other thing, Copilot can drift. I've convinced you, I hope, to have strategic discussions, brainstorming sessions, decision-making discussions, etc. Know that Copilot can drift. You can put boundaries, goals, objectives, whatever you want. You can tell Copilot that in the beginning, but if you have a day-long discussion, 2 or 3 days, Copilot can drift. That tends to happen in long multi-step or long horizon interactions because you will have competing ideas and context is going to accumulate. Copilot can drift. So every once in a while, remind Copilot what your original prompt was, your boundaries, your goals, your intentions, etc. And when I create a page, one of the first things I do is tell Copilot, please copy my goals, boundaries, and intentions to the top of this page because I'm going to refer you to it often. So, yeah, two big warnings when you get into strategy land with Copilot. Don't let it cheerlead you and don't let it drift. And if you can keep in mind those two things, you will do great things. And that is all I have.
Awesome, Arnie. So go ahead and look, Arnie, you've got a couple questions from Sarah and Todd in there, and I'll just make some comments. So for those of you that may not know, one of the things we do is actually build a solution for running EOS in the Microsoft 365 environment, and that actually solves your issue of Copilot having access to it. So it's one of the benefits. But Todd was asking some questions. Arnie, I'll let you go ahead and answer that. But the goal would be that all your data is in the Microsoft ecosystem so you can use Copilot to leverage your EOS data. Okay, I'm going to wrap up on a couple slides and then we'll go ahead and open up for Q&A. Arnie, if you go ahead and go to the next slide, that'd be awesome. So a lot of people will find our webinars on YouTube and they're like, who the heck is CTC Productivity? What do they do? So we always just want to kind of explain. So again, we're all things productivity, whether we be doing coaching, soft skill training, or Microsoft 365 consulting. Since the topic today is about Microsoft 365 consulting, really high level, the way we work is we really come in, we augment your internal IT and external IT groups as productivity experts, Microsoft 365 experts will come in and really peek under the hood, look and kind of assess your situation, make sure we're setting up things to match your particular organization, the way you want to work, solve your business issues. That may involve migrating data, migrating email, different things. And then we move into the optimize. What Arnie was saying along the way is it's critical that foundation is set up properly or Copilot is handcuffed on what it can do. So that's one of our biggest goals is to make sure the environment is set up specifically for Copilot. And then our business model is not to have you be dependent on us. It's that you would wrap up and not, need to have us, over and over again. And go ahead, Arnie. We have lots of different strategies around adoption, but at the end of the day, it doesn't do anything to just install the Microsoft suite. It's like getting people actually getting it configured to meet your business needs, getting users trained to actually use it to solve business issues. And so ultimately, it's about creating the right way to configure Microsoft 365 in your environment. We call that your rules of engagement or your operations manual on how to use 365. Once you have that, then you can train to how to use the suite of tools. So just a reminder, and I'll enter into chat again, the session in July is going to be on Copilot Cowork and Claude. So you might go ahead and sign up. Don't even worry about checking your calendar because we send the recording. So we send the recording after, and then go ahead, Arnie, go next slide. There's the QR code if you'd prefer to use that. It should take you to some of the same information. And then I think we're ready for Q&A. So Arnie, you could stop sharing. So Angela, I like your comment. I love the idea of using Copilot for rock ideas. We'll do that in my next clarity break. Love it. Good for you, Angela. So Arnie, did you get a chance to look at a couple of questions that had come through?
Public slide advancement while I'm also reading, so I paid attention to you. But
Oh,
I'm reading
sorry.
the questions. That's all right. I'm one question from Todd. Are L10 notes, VTO documents, rocks, etc., maintained and updated in OneNote, accessible to Copilot with the paid version of it? I don't use OneNote a lot. I rely on SharePoint lists, but I believe that perhaps somebody can look that up in Copilot. But yes, OneNote, I answer my own question. Yes, OneNote is Copilot will dig into there and extract those. So answer is yes.
As long as it has access to the OneNote. It's not like a personal OneNote somebody else has.
Ex
If it has permissions
exactly.
to the data, it can access it. Yeah. And then Sarah had a question. I've been using chat and it knows me. I recently tried to convert to Copilot and I can't get it to respond the way I want. Any ideas? Sarah, I'll comment and then I'll let my experts on the call comment if they want to join in. But as we've been hearing, it's just like an administrative assistant. It's going to take a while to learn you. So if you've been working with chat for a while, it hasn't really learned specifics about you. And so you might still be in that training mode. At least that's been my experience. Anybody else on the team want to comment, or anybody on the call?
So what I've heard from the IT gurus that I talk with, if you just started paying for Copilot, it can take about 3 months. You need to use it in that 3 months, but it can take about 3 months to really start understanding you. So it might not be, mine has gotten so much better. The more I use it, the better it gets. So that is definitely one of the things. And as far as prompting, biggest thing I tell people is pretend you were talking to a colleague or a coworker or a friend when you're asking a question, because you're not just going to say, paint stores. You're going to say, hey, what's your favorite paint store and why do you like it? Well, talk to Copilot like you would ask, or if you needed something done.
You can also, I actually built a OneNote when I first got Copilot, telling it all about me, my business, everything I thought it would want to know, and then I referred it to that document often in the early going. Now it knows me well enough it doesn't have to.
And Libby is one of our fabulous team members too. She's made some comments in the chat as well about that. So, any other
Yes.
comments or questions?
I see one at the end while somebody's thinking of another question. Sarah asks, how do you confirm it has permissions to our SharePoint info? That all depends on the individual using Copilot's permissions. Copilot can dig through anything that that end user has permissions to. Which, by the way, another word of caution: if you are uncertain about the whether your information is watertight permissions wise, in other words, let's say you have a company of 50 people and you are not positive that your spreadsheet showing everyone's salaries is properly secured, don't get Copilot for lower level employees yet. You got to make Copilot is fantastic at respecting permissions, but if you have not properly set your permissions on sensitive documents, Copilot will open that stuff up to where a janitor could say, how much does Jan make? And it will answer
Not
her.
much. Yeah. Yeah, Sarah, I'll just add into that. This is why quite often companies will reach out to us and they'll be like, we want to leverage Copilot. We want to use it, everywhere. But we find that their infrastructure is set up incorrectly. And so to answer your question, I'm not sure exactly how an end user right off the top would know whether Copilot can get to it. I mean, Copilot can get to whatever you can see, but the goal is definitely, often it's about reconfiguring the environment. What I always say is the CEO should see every single document, every single conversation, every single a piece of information throughout the organization. Doesn't mean they want it popping up in their face, but the Teams and SharePoint environment should be configured in a way that the CEO can see everything. And then obviously people are restricted from there. But most companies will hear about the great benefits of getting onto 365 and they'll move, I always say, all their data onto one big fat SharePoint site. But it's really the combination of having Teams and SharePoint configured together and permissions at that level set up properly to allow who can and cannot see the information. So yeah, hope that helped. So any
Ben,
other questions?
Also,
Yeah.
the down and dirty is if when you open up your Copilot chat on a web browser, if you see work and web, then therefore it is able to search anything in your work environment that you have access to.
Mhm.
right, Ben made a good point.
Mhm.
I'll read it word for word. Copilot isn't a key, it's a light switch. If you turn it on and folks suddenly see sensitive documents, that means they already had access and just didn't know it.
Well said.
So yeah, you've been lucky to this point that they didn't know they had access to your salary spreadsheet. But now Copilot brings it to their attention.
So Arnie, there's a question from Sarah. I am an admin, but I ask it questions about something on our SharePoint, but it cannot answer the question.
One thing I discovered, and this may not be the root cause, but here's another good learning for everyone, is when you ask your first question, Copilot, for whatever reason, will guess that, oh, I need to go out on the web, and it will switch itself from work to web. And then it will tell you, I don't have access to that, which is quite frustrating. So the first thing to check is if it will not dig into something that you know good and well you have access to, it very likely switched over to web off of work at that top tab. Other than that, wow, if you have access, Copilot should get to it.
Yeah, Sarah, our tech team could get in there and figure out what was going on. I'm not sure if you have access, it should be able to see it. So
Now, another thing too is, I don't know what, Sarah, your SharePoint experience is, but sometimes a list or library will have unique permissions. It doesn't matter how much you could be a full contributor, edit access on the SharePoint site, but if that library has unique permissions, Copilot will not get in there. It respects that it has the unique permissions.
all right, gang, any other questions? You're welcome to unmute and ask or enter into chat. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We're so happy you were with us today. Hopefully we'll see you in July for our next session. And all right, I don't see any comments. All right, thanks everyone. Good to see you. Have a good rest of your week.